It's been many years since we had a new EC at Pasir Ris. Hey everybody, I'm Sophia and today we're going to deep dive into Coastal Cabana, the newest EC to launch in the area. So we'll be covering everything from pricing, layout, whether you should be going for a better view, and also if you're aware there is another EC coming out down the line which will be in Tampines. So stay tuned to the end of the video where we'll talk about whether you should wait for that or go for this one instead. Now, without further ado, let's get started by looking at the location. So for those of you not familiar with Pasir Ris, this is where the plot will be located. Now it's right next to eHub where you're going to have the convenience of your eateries, your daily amenities just across the road. Now if you're a nature lover as well, we're really near the Pasir Ris Beach and Park, which will have the seafront over here. Now in terms of transport, you're going to have a bus stop right outside your development, and this is going to lead to the nearby Pasir Ris MRT as well as the upcoming Cross Island line, which is a few years down the road. Now looking at the facade, just from what I've seen at the show flat, what I do like is that the exterior as well as the buildings, the way that it's laid out is quite different from the existing older developments in the area. So you can see from the artist's impression here, right across the road, you have your eHub and amenities. Now the interior is going to look a little something like this. This will be your clubhouse. And if you're on the very top floors of the side of the blocks that are facing towards the seafront, this is what your view could look like. Let's go into the overview first. So this is by Qingjian, and the estimated vacant possession for this will be around 2029. Now in terms of the number of units, you have 748 residential units, and this will be in blocks of 11 to 12 stories. And of course, it will come with your basement car park as well as your swimming pool and tennis court. Now, let's go into the unit mix. So you're going to be able to get a 3-bedroom all the way to a 5-bedroom. Now, quite interestingly, the number of 3 bedrooms is actually very close to the number of 4 bedrooms, where usually you will see the 3 bedrooms having more units in other ECs. In this case, there are actually more 4 bedrooms. So in terms of the sizing for 3 bedroom, it's going to be the 872 range to 915. And then for 4 bedroom, you're going to have a wider range of 900 plus to 1200. And then of course, you have 5 bedrooms, which will be 1300 and above here. Now let's look at the site plan. So they've done it in a way where all the buildings are facing at a horizontal way across the development. Now on this side is where the seafront views will be. Not all the units facing this side are going to get the sea view because in front there is still another development. So if you're looking to get a chance of seeing that, you're likely going to have to look at level 8 and above. Now the rest will be facing inwards towards the development, which I will say the landscaping looks quite good. A lot of open and green spaces as well as pools scattered throughout the development so that nobody really has a bad view. In terms of what would be the most premium facing, of course, I would say this side where you have a chance of the sea view. And then of course for the cheaper ones, I will say it will be the road facing ones. Now before we go into the specifics of each bedroom type as well as the pricing, we'll touch a bit on the eligibility factor for ECs because it's not as straightforward as a private condo. So it's crucial you know these certain things before you even think about going in. So one of the biggest challenges to entering an EC at launch is that your loan is assessed by the MSR system, which is similar to how it is assessed for HDBs and BTO versus the TDSR system. So for MSR, they're going to take into account a smaller portion of your income, which allows you to loan less. Whereas for TDSR, this is what is used for private condos as well as ECs after MOP. That's going to take into account a bigger portion of your income, 55%, which allows you to borrow more. So what this means for someone buying EC firsthand is that your loan is going to be generally less than if you went for a private condo, which means you might need to top up a bit more cash depending on what your situation is. And of course, other than having your loan assessed, there will be other eligibility criteria that are very similar to when you enter a BTO. So please get your agent or somebody to check if you are eligible before even going down to view Coastal Cabana. Now, for the estimated pricing, now that we know the loan scheme, Based on what has been announced, the 3-bedroom is going to start at about 1,438,000, which brings it to about 1,649 PSF. Whereas for the 4-bedroom, it's going to be about 1.623 million and 1,639 PSF. So this is crucial for us to know to assess what might be a safe price to go into this, which we will touch on for each bedroom type later on. Now let's dive in straight to the 3-bed. So here is the overview of the 3 bedrooms. You're going to have two types. This is the 3-bedroom deluxe as well as the 3-bedroom premium. Into the 3-bedroom deluxe at 872 square feet, there actually aren't that many stacks of this. It's going to be C1A and C1B, which are mirror images of each other, and total there is only 4 stacks, all of which are facing inwards towards the amenities. So you're not going to get that seafront or road facing view. Now internally, what you're getting for this is 3 good sized bedrooms that can fit a queen even up to a king. Now this is important for you to take note because later on you will see other layouts that can only fit a single size bed. So this is a bonus for the layout. Now secondly, you have your enclosed kitchen over here as well as your utility and proper tucked-in dining area. So this actually reminds me a lot of a 4-room BTO. So for those that are moving from that selling off into this, I feel it will be a very easy transition, and especially if you're coming into an area like Pasir Ris where there are so many new BTOs upcoming, I think this will remain attractive in the resale market in the future as well. For the premium bigger layouts, they're going to be 915 square feet, and what you're getting extra for C2 versus C3 will be a bit different. So for C2, you have your nook of a study over here, and then you have a wash closet in the kitchen. Whereas for C3, you have a proper extra study room here. Now, in terms of facing, for both, you're going to have very similar ones. But between the two, I would say I personally prefer C3. I think a proper extra study room offers families a lot more flexibility versus an extra wash closet would. With all these extra features, is it worth going for the bigger one if let's say you have both as an option? Or if let's say deluxe moves out already and you're only left with premium, is it still worth going for? And to that, we want to look at what the possible price difference might be. So we already know that for the starting price of a 3-bedroom, it's going to be around 1,649 per square foot. So I'm just going to buffer it up to more of a middle range, 1,800 per square foot, where you probably have some options of higher floors as well as the views you may like. So for a block that has both deluxe and premium with the same facing, same floor, let's assume both are at 1,800 per square foot. This would bring your deluxe layout to 1.569 million, and then your premium one, the one with the extra study or wash closet, to about 1.647 million. So the difference will be about 77,400, which to me, I think it is worth it to go for the bigger one if you have the option to. I think for the benefit of an extra study room, this is actually not difficult to recover in terms of market price in the resale of this area. So between the two bigger ones, I would also again still go for C3 because I think an extra room is really worth the extra premium over here, and the gap is actually not very big. Like in private condos, you would see that sometimes for extra study, you're easily looking at an extra 100 to 250k. Moving on into the pricing, how are we going to determine what is a safe entry and walk away price for Coastal when there's been no new EC in Pasir Ris for so long that it's an apple to apple comparison? So in order to understand that, we're going to look at the condos as well as the older resale ECs to understand what the pricing is so we can create a safety zone buffer in pricing. Now, what do I mean by that? First, we look at the average for a 3-bedroom in Pasir Ris, and this includes condos as well as resale ECs. Now, what we see, the average is now about 1.536 million. Now, this is important for you to know because this is a price that is accepted on an average now. We don't want to go too far off from that. However, for Pasir Ris, most of the developments, whether it's resale EC or condo, are already much older, at least 10 to 15 years from Coastal. So as something that is new and quite rarely so, we know that we can command a bit more of a premium, but we don't want to go too far off from the average, right? Because if I'm going to buy a 3-bedroom here at very high, they can go somewhere more central already. So that's what we're going to keep in mind for a new EC. we can be a little bit higher than this, but we don't want to go too far off. So how far off can we go? We look at the condo pricing that are newer in the area to have a top line buffer. Because if we look at something like Pasir Ris 8, for example, a mixed D new condo, definitely a new EC, we don't expect the price to be the same. So we want to make sure we have a healthy distance of cheaper pricing from that. So for Pasir Ris 8, the starting price was 1.8 million for a 3-bedroom and average was 2.2 million. Now, in the immediate area of Coastal as well, you have some new condos. They are smaller and freehold, but price done already, 3-bedroom, 2.1 million, averaging 2.4 million. So we can see that in Pasir Ris for a 3-bedroom that is new, is a very comfortably accepted prices are above 2 mil already for a private condo. So for a resale EC, we can work our price backwards from that in terms of what we want to sell in the future. So we want to look at the surrounding area as well, and Coastal is over here. Right next to it, you have several resale ECs and condos, the youngest being TOP in 2016, Sea Horizon, which is an EC as well. Now for the average price of a 3-bedroom there, it's going at about 1.479 million, done 1.71 million. Surrounding area, we also see 3-bedroom has already transacted at 1.77, 1.8 million. So how is this going to help us? This will allow us to map out our price. So we already know resale EC that is close to 10 years old can already transact average 1.45 million here. Done 1.8 million. The private condos we saw earlier comfortably 2.2 million. Now my recommendation is if you're going for a 3-bedroom at Coastal, I wouldn't go too far off from a 1.65 million. Now why do I say that? That still keeps you in a very close range or same price range as what a much older resale EC is selling at today. On top of that, it gives you enough buffer to sell at the price that is already done today. We don't even know what it will be like 9 years down the road, right? But you just need to sell a bit higher than them in order to make a profit, and that still gives you a very comfortable buffer from what the private condos are transacting today. What's more, 9 years down the road when you MOP. So in terms of pricing, I would keep it quite close to this. Next, we have the 4-bedroom, which is going to have more variation in terms of layouts. Now size-wise, it's going to range from 990 square feet all the way to 1,206 square feet. So let's start with the smallest 4-bedroom, and that's going to be the classic. Facing wise, it'll be outwards towards the entrance as well as the roadside. Now what's the difference between this versus the 3-bedroom? You now get an extra bedroom, but do note for classic, it will only be able to fit a single size bed. For all 4 bedrooms, you will get a wash closet in your kitchen as well. Now comparing this to the 1,012 square feet one where all face inwards, the difference is now your extra bedroom can fit up to a queen size bed. Now for the dining area, also some minor differences. Because of the way the DB box is laid out for 990 square feet, the dining area is just tucked over here, which can make the space feel a bit more constricted when you're going into the living room, versus for 1,012 square feet where you have a proper tuck-in corner which will open up the horizontal space. Now moving on to the next category of 4-bedroom, which is the premium plus study. So the difference between this and what we just saw is now you have an extra proper study room for both the 1,163 square feet and 1,216 square feet. On top of that, they also both have a walk-in wardrobe. However, the difference for the larger layout is now you have an extra balcony area that will be attached to your master bedroom. Facing wise, both have stacks towards the entrance side. Only for 1,163 square feet, you will have the inward facing choices too. Lastly, we have the Premium Plus Flexi, and the difference for this is now you do not have a study area. Instead, the extra space has been located to a flexi area here in the living room, as well as a wider balcony. So personally, I always love wide frontage balconies in living room, and they usually do really well in the resale market because they really just give a bigger open space when you walk in. So you can choose to leave the flexi area as part of a larger living room, or if you really need to enclose it as a study, you still have that option. However, do note that facing wise though, all these will be facing inwards towards the amenities as with most of the stacks. So if you're looking for that chance to get the sea view, you will not be able to get it with this layout. So this brings us to the question, if you do have the opportunity to choose a possibly sea-facing unit at a premium, is it worth going for it? Now, there are not a lot of fair comparisons that are equal because most ECs you definitely EC cannot get a sea view outside of Pasir Ris. So the closest comparison will be Sea Horizon, the resale EC next door. Now back then when in TOP in 2016, the way that this development is built is so that most stacks you will be able to get a pocket view of the sea. Now looking at their top profitable transaction, 80% of them are actually the sea-facing stacks. Now why? We may think that a better view equals higher profit, but we've seen in many times, as I said in my other videos, condos, the better view doesn't mean they make more. And the reason for this, we'll look closer at the entry price. So for Sea Horizon, back then when it launched, we'll look at stack 8 over here and stack 34. So stack 8 is the one with the pocket sea view and stack 34 is outwards. Now they bought very closely together 24th November and then 9 December. But you can see that the entry price for the sea facing was only 849 versus the one that is non-sea facing, that's 810. So that is 39 PSF difference, about 30k for a better view. The only reason you're able to get this is because the EC at launch is still considered a subsidized housing, which means the premium in jumps for higher floor, better views are going to be much less than a private condo where easily for a better view you're paying 200-300k more. So the rule of thumb for EC is always go for the better view and the higher floor if you can, because the premium is definitely not hard to make back when you hit back in the resale market. And furthermore, looking at Coastal Cabana, unlike Sea Horizon where you have the different stacks that all can get a bit of the view, Coastal Cabana, because it is a horizontal layout, only those facing the entrance side will have a chance to be able to see the view. On top of that, because you do have a few developments in front, only from about, I believe, the 8th floor above, you will be able to have a chance at the view. So that makes it only 32 units out of 748 units. So in the future, when you are that rare few that have the view and you are the youngest in the area, I think this will really give you the advantage. Lastly, what is the safe entry price and walkaway price for the 4-bedroom here? Again, we want to look at what's the average 4-bedroom in the whole of Pasir Ris, since we don't have any new ECs to compare to. And for all resale condos, all resale ECs included, the average in Pasir Ris now is about 2,065,000. So again, this forms our baseline because all these developments are much older, so we want to command a little bit of a premium from that. But how far do we go again? Looking at the new condo, which is Pasir Ris 8, is averaging at 2.6 million for a 4-bedder. So we know that a mixed D condo like that is private, definitely we want to command a lot less than that. So we want to make sure that it's a healthy buffer that is spacing us between that pricing essentially. And looking at the surrounding area, average for a 4-bedroom, we have 1.76 million, 1.95 million, and comfortably doing above 2 million depending on the size of the 4-bedroom. So to me, if we know the average here for an older EC is already at 1.8 million and they're already about 10 years and older, and the brand new condo is about 2.6 million at Pasir Ris 8, I would suggest that you don't cross 2.15 million or keep it very close to that, because again, this is going to give you a good buffer from the new condos, and even when they sell at an even higher price at their entry, that's an even bigger buffer next time, right? But it also keeps you competitive with your surrounding older developments in the area. Lastly, we have the larger size, which is the 5-bedrooms. Now for this, you're going to have two different layouts. Now the smaller one is going to be 1,367 square feet. This is layout E1. And then the larger one is going to be 1,421 square feet, and this is layout E2. So one thing to note is that all the 5-bedrooms will be facing the entrance side of the development, which is where you possibly have the sea view. But for layout E1, the smaller 5-bedroom, this will be on all the lower floors, whereas layout E2, the larger one, this will be on the 6th floor onwards and above, which is where you have a higher chance of getting that view as well. So in terms of what you're getting with these two layouts, you have the same perks as all the larger 4-bedrooms, except now, of course, you have an extra 5th bedroom, which can comfortably fit a queen size bed, and on top of that you also have an extra bathroom. Your living room is also going to be a little bit wider, which is why you can fit that 8-seater dining in the middle without it feeling too cramped. Now for the bigger 5-bedroom, on top of all this, your balcony is also a bit wider and bigger, and this connects to one of the common bedrooms. All in all, I would say this is a pretty luxe and comfortably sized unit for a 5-bedroom. So for those looking for a 5-bedroom, I think this layout is worth considering. Lastly, the big question, should you go for Coastal Cabana or wait for the upcoming Tampines EC? So understand that, let's look at the land price. Now for Coastal, they bought the land at 729 per square foot, and that means their starting price, which has been announced, is 1,649. So Rivelle Tampines, they bought the land at a higher price, 768 per square foot, which means their estimated starting price might be around 1,700 to 1,750. Now taking as a benchmark Aurel also, because this is the same developer that will be doing Rivelle Sinlian. Now they bought the land for 721. They launched at 1.417 million as a starting price. So looking at this, definitely Rivelle is going to be a new high for the Tampines EC. That being said, I would still say the pricing of it, even launching at this, will still be attractive in Tampines because the gap to the private condos there are much bigger in terms of the pricing. But which would I go for, and would I just skip Coastal altogether and go for Rivelle? That depends. Both have its pros and cons. Now if you're someone that strictly wants a little bit more of a central east side, then by all means wait for Tampines. But if you're sitting on both edges, I would actually consider both. Now what do I mean by that? So for Coastal, the location is definitely not as central or near to the MRT as the Tampines one. But I think in terms of the price spread this is going to have and the lack of supply in Pasir Ris, as well as what has already been transacted for resale, you're definitely going to have a lot of options which are very safe entry price and will allow you to exit in a healthy place in the future. Whereas for Tampines, the pros is your location is definitely going to be a bit more central. However, do keep in mind also, whereas Pasir Ris has not had a new EC for a long time, in the past few years we have had a few launch in Tampines with a few more that just TOP as well. So definitely your competition is going to be higher in the future. And also with Rivelle, since it will be a new high for EC, if you don't get a good ballot number going into that and you end up buying the top and high prices of the developments, I'm not so sure about how safe it will be really, because you are waiting to sell at a price that has not been done in the area yet. So if you're considering both, I would actually ballot for Coastal first, see if you get a good number, because if you have a top few pick choices, I would say there are a lot of very attractive options. And then if it doesn't work out so well, then go for the Tampines one to ballot, instead of just banking everything on one if you don't mind both location, because there is no guarantee you will get a good number at Tampines. After that, if you are someone that is purely looking at EC, in terms of east location, there's not really going to be any in the near future. The next one will likely be in Sembawang as well as Senja. And that's all for today's video. If you found this video helpful, please give it a like. And if you're considering any of the upcoming ECs, please get an agent to do your eligibility check before you even head down. Any other questions on Coastal, or if you would like to book an appointment to have a look at the show flat, you're always welcome to reach out to me, and I'll catch y'all in the next video.